Echt mededogen en morele normen zijn de ware oplossing. Deel 13 van 22, intussen meester en discipelen, gehouden in het Engels op 21 december 2021.
Chưa gặp em, tôi đã nghĩ rằng có nàng thiếu nữ đẹp như trăng.
So the couple used the stick that the master gave them and then put the hat on it so that they can stay together, to try to avoid the dew, the wet dew. And then they leaned on each other and slept under the hat and the stick that's buried in the earth. So they slept like that. In the middle of the night, they woke up and saw that they themselves were inside a beautiful, glorious palace. With all kinds of commodities that they needed, beautiful beds and shining furniture, with all kinds of facilities, like a palace. And even had servants. Servants, a young teenage and royal servants, women, royal servants and men. And also a lot of soldiers and guards, bodyguards, all over. It was very lively around their palace, yeah. The next morning, they woke up and went out of the palace and looked around and saw big royal walls already all over for protection. And then have guards everywhere, a lot of them. It's like a king's palace and scenery. So they settled there. This strange phenomena, news, flew all over like flying news to the king. And the king was feeling very perplexed. And then many of the, kings, right? They have good officials and bad officials. Those that are telling him, they must be planning to make a revolution, go against you, Your Majesty. So he dispatched a big group, a big army, to go to the place where they are living, where the princess and daughter were living. When they arrived there, the evening had just come. They could not pass. They could not cross the river. And at midnight, suddenly there were storms. Many trees are broken, and then a lot of dust and a lot of everything was flying all over in the storm.
Yes.
And then suddenly, the area where Princess Ding Yong and Dong Tu were all flew up into the sky.
Oh. Wow.
The whole thing, the whole palace and everybody.
Wow.
And then only an empty sandy beach was left over in the middle of the river. So after that, people call that sandy beach in the middle of the river. They call it the natural beach. And that area actually is a lake. Maybe the river and the lake are connected. And the lake, they call it one night lake, meaning overnight everything changed. And because the people saw such a phenomena, they built a little monument to worship the husband and wife on top of that sandy beach, the natural beach, because it just naturally came out because it wasn't there before, and then it just one night lake, yeah. Generation after, meaning the next generation, there's a king who passed by that area and stopped there and camped there with his soldiers in order to fight against the Liang dynasty's government. They probably dispatched their soldiers to invade Vietnam at that time. The king's name was Triệu Việt Vương, and he was probably pushed by the Chinese Liang Dynasty soldiers, fighters at that time. So he has to go over there and camp over there. And when he was all surrounded by the enemies, the situation was really urgent. Tiểu Việt Vương, the king Tiểu Việt at that time, he built a high tower, small high tower, and he went up there to pray to all the deities and God to help him in order to escape this situation, also to win over the enemy, to win the war, because the Chinese came to Vietnam at that time and wanted to invade the country, and he was already cornered here.
Yes.
And of course they are outnumbered. The Vietnamese would outnumber because the Chinese would a lot of people. They always have a lot of people. Anyway, looked like they were dying already. But then suddenly, because he was so sincere, and he was innocent, the Vietnamese, they didn't go and do anything to China. China at that time just went there and wanted to invade their country. So he was very, very sincere, of course, and pray. And then suddenly he said he wanted to escape this and win the war and protect his country. So please help them. And then he suddenly saw a deity, very dignified, fly down from heaven with a dragon. He drove on top of a dragon and flew down from heaven. And then he gave King Tiểu Việt a nail from the dragon and said to the king, "You put this nail of the dragon, attach it to your spear, and then wherever you go, the enemies will be destroyed, will be dispersed and destroyed." Then the deity flew back to heaven with the dragon. The king, Tiểu Việt, at that time, obeyed the deity and did exactly that. Oh, actually, it is not the spear. He should put it on top of his head, the hat that he wore.
Yes.
And then on top of his head, he attached this dragon's nail. And then he felt that his health, his spirit, everything multiplied.
Yes.
And he felt and broke the surrounding enemy lines, and then killed the leader, the general.
Yes.
The general, the leader of the group of the Chinese army. And then, of course, without a leader, all the soldiers didn't know what else to do. They ran. They were scared also, because how can the king, who was already surrounded by enemies like that, without anything inside, just on the sandy beach, suddenly become victorious, as if he is like a general from heaven. So they all run away and escaped, and some died, some ran. They all became broken down and run away. And whatever was left over from that army, they left Vietnam. They run away. They didn't stay in Vietnam anymore after that. They didn't want to. They could not invade Vietnam or control Vietnam. They could not colonize Vietnam. They run away. They went home. End the story. The person who told this story, his name, Vũ Ngọc Phan. We thank him also. We thank him here. Posthumous, I guess. We thank all the authors and all the persons who told all these stories. It's from a real story.
Yeah.
Wow.
These personages existed, and the location still exists.
Oh.
All right. Very good. Thank you all, and thank you, the princess and the prince.
Yeah.
Thank you, Master.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Master,
Master.
for sharing the story.
sánh vai một mái lầu phong nguyệt